This is Metabolic Radio, the podcast dedicated to keeping you informed when it comes to everything fitness. My name is Taylor Empey, and with the help of my co-host Shane Pace, we aim to expose the truths about the health and fitness industry. The information and suggestions given in this podcast should not be considered as clinical or medical advice. Consult with a physician before implementing any information provided on this podcast. Welcome to this episode of Metabolic Radio.
Forgive Taylor, he's had no caffeine. Have you had caffeine?
I've had some,
Okay.
but not in a few hours. Actually, I might go grab a coffee out in the lounge there.
No, that I said that. Who needs caffeine?
You've brought it to my attention that I haven't had as many milligrams of caffeine as I normally do today.
And he's wired, so
Yeah.
so that's a little scary.
No, I just wanted to make sure people felt welcome.
Okay. Okay.
So, what
He
is our
didn't-
topic today?
He didn't welcome
What are
me.
we talking about? You know what we're talking about. Put that away. Body types. Somatotyping is what it's technically called. Soma, coming from, I think, the Greek root of meaning body, right?
That sounds good to me.
Anyway.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Somatotypes are what is the scientific term for what we call our body types. And that's what we want to talk about today, because we just did an episode where we talked about it was briefly touched upon as a result of a Q&A. So we thought that it was important to talk about this topic because we do get a lot of questions, or I've just gotten a lot of questions before about body types and their different reactions, and how, are there different training methods for different body types? Are there different nutrition for different body types? Those kind of things. And so there's interesting evidence that may support certain body typing or body type specific methods and approaches. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
See, and I'm going to say, in my opinion, it's not necessarily has to be a scientifically proven thing. It's something that can be used as a tool.
Absolutely. Just like everything that we always say, it's always a tool.
Yep.
Because when you talk about body types, there's a lot of factors to consider that you can't be an entirely conclusive science, at least at this point.
Right. And I want to talk, in this, I also want to cover, well, we may do a different one for this, but we'll see if it'll fit in this, but muscle types.
Oh, muscle fibers? Mm-hmm. Oh, see, I think that should be a whole nother
I think we can do this
episode.
together.
Why?
Because we'll find out if this takes too much space. Because I think it fits. It's something that I personally have theories on.
Oh, interesting.
Dealing with this and muscle fibers. So,
well, from a genetic standpoint, absolutely,
it would make sense.
So, I mean, pretty much what we mentioned in this past
something
episode
that I've seen any evidence on yet. So.
Was body types being determined by two major factors, which are hormones and genetics. Mm-hmm. And hormones are something we can influence, and genetics is something that is just our hereditary predisposition.
100% agree with that, actually.
Yeah.
I was going to say
some of the big
true.
influential factors
Yep.
there. However, one thing we could talk about that I've heard, I got to look way more into it, but is about as you change your body composition, it restructures your DNA. So, like, for example, if you I
would have to see research on that.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if this is just like complete, like, whatever the word is, just like pseudoscience, but the idea that, like, okay, let's say I have a kid, based on, and we got pregnant at the time that I had a specific body, and then let's say that I actually had a kid 3 years later when I had a way more athletic body. I'm going to pass on more athletic traits. That's kind of the idea or the theory behind that. But I haven't really looked into the science of it. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, see, now I would think in a circumstance like that, would you get that kind of trait reaction? You could, but that could also be from training. So you have different components when you're talking about potentials, if you will. You have genetics, you have environment, and you have association. So you have, like if your parents we're highly educated. The odds are you're going to be highly educated as you get older. That's not because you're genetically geared towards being highly educated. It means that your parents assisted you to become more highly educated because of environment.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So it's training.
Yeah. So like I said, I haven't really looked into it. I've just heard of that, and it kind of seemed relevant to what we were talking about. So I was just curious if you had any insight on that.
No, I don't.
That would be a good topic.
It would be. We're both gonna have to look that up. I would honestly believe that would be more. That would be more not. It would be based on just what's going on around them. Just because, like I said, the atmosphere would change. So if you have someone who sits around a lot, and they have 2 kids, their kids are going to naturally sit around because that's what they do. And then,
so you think it's more of a conditioning and modeling thing than it is like
I would think
I'm more athletic when you were conceived, so you have more predisposition to more athletic body type traits or something like that.
No, the only thing I can see that might change it from it, yes, but no, I would say the only thing that would change that concept would be the idea of if you had someone who was using anabolics. Or some kind of
actual hormone
therapy of some sort, because it would actually influence potentially the genetic makeup of the person.
But that's what's interesting is because you do alter your hormone profile.
You do
through certain factors, but not on a nearly dramatic level as using a hormone supplementally.
Right.
So that'd be cool to talk about.
That is an intriguing sidetracking of what you've done.
Yeah. I pulled a Shane, guys. I just pulled a Shane.
That was impressive.
Tangent.
Yes, and it was an amazing tangent.
It actually was relevant, so I don't know.
It is semi-relevant. It's not quite as tangent. I'm better at tangenting.
So
you do what you're good at. And I'll
keep us on track.
And I'll be the tangent guy.
Okay. So for being on track, there's different sub-classifications of body types, but the main...
Talk about the main ones, yeah.
The main primary 3 body types you're going to hear referred to all the time are ectomorphs. These are naturally thinner individuals. They have thinner bone structure, longer bone structure, thinner bone structure, which causes their muscles to look more elongated because they have further apart insertion and origin points.
Oh, they are longer.
So, yeah, technically, yeah. They won't have as deep of muscle bellies. They have a easier time keeping weight off and a harder time keeping weight on. And they can be tall or they can be normal height, but they tend to be of that thinner, wiry type of body. Mesomorphs are naturally muscular, naturally athletic. They tend to hold muscle well. They can gain fat, but they typically don't hold on to too much of it. They don't look thin. They look more what some people would say as proper proportioned for the human body potential. Now that's kind of more of a subjective, potentially aesthetic kind of driven claim, but that's kind of what that looks like. Their muscle bellies are going to be their bone structure is going to be shorter than ectomorphs proportionally. They'll have deeper muscle bellies. They'll have more of a muscular look. And endomorphs are naturally heavy individuals that they actually can be very tall as well. They can be big, but they can be of normal height as well. They tend to hold on to a lot of body fat. They can still also hold on to quite a lot of muscle, but they tend to be very heavy. They tend to be more of those overweight to obese body types. And they have a harder time losing weight and maintaining weight loss, even though they might have a lot of muscle and they have a lot of body fat.
Well, and here's a real quick. Well, first of all, for your spelling bees out there.
Oh, one more thing, real quick. They're gonna have shorter limbs and very.
They usually have shorter limbs.
Yeah, and thicker bones.
If they're bigger, it's based on their body structure. But so ectomorph. For those spelling bee people out there, ECTO is how you spell it. Ectomorph, MORPH. Mesomorph is MESA.
No.
MESO.
There you go. MESO.
MORPH.
MESO.
You said it right, dude. I did that I did a mesomorph in my head.
Mesomorph.
And then mesomorph. It's a MA.
A mesomorph?
Anyway, sorry.
Sorry, we're not trying to offend anyone who might be listening.
No, we could be, and we're not really going down that road. So, anyway, endomorph is ENDRO morph.
No, that's endromorph.
Oh, my hell. Start this over. We're going to start this over.
Stop. ENDOR.
Am I doing drugs?
Oh no! Oh my gosh, we are really bad at spelling.
Oh my gosh! Did I do an R?
You did R-O, and I did.
I'm not swearing. I
did
did
O-R. Endormorph.
Yeah, we're gonna start this over.
No, we're not.
Yeah, we are.
We're not starting.
We're not doing this again.
Yeah.
No, we can't do this. People, we hate this episode.
Okay, take it.
All right.
Anyway,
endomorph is ENDOMORPH.
Cool.
Okay, sorry. Spelling bee, fail. That was an absolute failure on my part, and now I'm really flustered by that. But, because I do know the spelling, if I'd written it, it would have come out right the whole time. Wow. Okay, so, where this body type, we're going to be more serious now. Where the body, is it really that loud?
You're going in the red, dude.
That's impressive. It's because I'm frustrated. But body typing started by a psychologist. His name was, I just told you this. I need to look this up. Do you have it in front of you?
Nope.
His last name is Shelton, I do believe. I will find it. I shall find this information.
Anyway, it was a psychologist.
William Herbert Sheldon
1940s.
in the 1940s came out with this as an idea that went along with another style of psychology that he was trying to perpetuate out there, dealing with how body types went along with psychology, and that has been proven to be not true. When we talked about in the last episode, we talked about this in. We kind of covered that really briefly, but that is something that has been proven to be false completely. You know, it was based on the idea that people who are bigger were happier, and people that were a little thinner were less happy and more intelligent, and there was a whole bunch of things about it. But like I said, it's been proven to be completely false. That being said, I think the tool that this is, and this is the reason why we went to talk about it, even though we didn't start this episode over to make it cleaner, why it's important is because you can actually pull some things dealing with training that are not necessarily need to know, but they're definitely something that will help to make your training more efficient if you know your body type.
But so let's clarify though, because it started out as a psychological classification,
yes,
but it's not that at all.
It's not a psychological.
It's based off of genetic factors, and hormone profiles are two of the most predominant
that people
factors.
Take them from. Yes, usually the majority of people look at it. It's based on the actual physical appearance and the way your body reacts naturally. But hormones is what some people who have looked into this more deal with. So and I'll try to be less scatterbrained.
In my weight management course, we talked a lot about genetics, and about 25% of body type is established from genetic factors, essentially.
That's fair.
So it's interesting to note that about a quarter of your body type is determined specifically from hereditary,
which would make sense.
Factors, yeah.
I would say it's even probably stronger.
It probably is more, but that's probably a conservative estimate.
Yeah, it's got to be based on DNA. I mean, now granted, we're going to go into some speculation. Most of this is not pseudoscience, but it's not real science either. It's toyed with, and some people throw it out. Some trainers throw it out. Some very good trainers throw it out actually as something that's not needed to know. I think it's a good tool to give you an idea on what your body is not necessarily capable of doing, because I don't think it's a restrictive thing, but it gives you something to
levers would be
leverage. Yes, to make it so that you can actually change your training up to meet the way your body actually will react. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But yeah, like anything that we've recommended in the past, this obviously would be a tool to utilize, because it's not the end all be all, but it's a huge factor, because regardless of what influences body type, there are different body types, and especially when it comes to factors like leverage, other physical factors.
Well, here's
it would have a huge impact on certain things.
Well, and here's what I'm going to say. I don't care what anybody says about what they're called. So if you take an ectomorph and you say they're the whole thing that Taylor defined already, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but they're thin, okay? A normal perspective is someone who runs marathons, thin, that kind of look. If you take that and you say, well, we know that he's thin, we're going to work from this basis. It's the same idea as using this as a body typing type scenario. If you take someone, you say he's got an athletic build, football player type, like a running back football player, you can say they got a muscular build, we're going to go from this point. Or you say either a lineman in football or a sumo wrestler
shot
putters, or for an endomorph. You can call it what you want. Who cares? And that's why I say it's not necessarily. We're not necessarily going to talk specific sciences today, but this is a basis of trying to get an understanding on how this corresponds with diet, with workout plans. Setting up your setup on how you're going to run it. And so that's partly why I thought it was a good idea we should talk about this.
So do you think that there are different nutritional needs for people of different body types, not for the necessarily goals of like weight loss or whatever, but because they have that body type, they should eat differently from other body types?
Potentially. Now, do I think that let's be real. Look in the real world. You talk to anybody out there and they're going to have a different diet than the next guy to them. And they should, because their body uses things different. Let's take from the basis of the three main body types, because there is more depth to this. But an ectomorph will have more tendency because they're not carb sensitive.
They're not carb sensitive,
or they are carb sensitive.
They are carb sensitive.
That's what I meant.
Because that's
my brain's stopping today.
No, you're good.
I can't spell.
Yeah,
I
they
can't
have
speak
better carbohydrate glucose tolerance.
See,
that's why John Berardi, I mentioned in that past episode.
You're right. And so the hormone basis, though, makes it so they can absorb carbs and not have a problem with it. That's where I'm going with this. And he's going to correct my brain's failures today.
You're good. If I just get a really surprised look on my face and I want you to explain further,
no,
then I probably think that you're wrong.
No, and that's why when I ask, because I looked at you, I'm like, I know I'm wrong. But a mesomorph will have different reactions, and an endomorph is going to be not sensitive to insulin almost at all, usually, by the way their body reacts on a hormonal basis, because that's one of the reasons why they gain more fat.
Yeah.
That's the reason why they gain more muscle probably as well, actually, considering what we've talked about just recently. But that's why I say that the hormone basis, you can work with the metabolism and you can tweak things like hormones by doing certain things to change it. So eating certain foods is going to react differently. So do I think they should eat differently? Technically, yes.
Yeah. Because what John Berardi advocates, and I say this, I keep bringing him up because that's the other than the academic nutritional information I've had, some other formal training I've had was through his program, and because he's a biochemist that studies this stuff he bases a lot of his program off of that, and his recommendations, I'll just give them again in case you didn't catch that other episode, but for body type specific nutrition, he recommends ectomorphs being somewhere on the high carbohydrate intake, somewhere around 50 to 60%, and these are approximate numbers of his. About, I think it's lower fats and medium protein intake, around 25 or 30% protein, and the remainder is fat. Mesomorphs, he puts around a 40%, so a medium carbohydrate intake, and a kind of also a low to moderate fat protein. That's going to be a 30% fat, 30% protein. And an endomorph he has on very high fats, 40% or more fat, and very low carbohydrate. I can't remember the exact number, but I think it's in the low 20 percentile or lower, and a medium to high protein, about 35%. So those are kind of rough numbers. They might not equate to exactly 100%, but you get the basic idea there. Endomorphs are high fat intake, mesomorphs are right in the middle, and ectomorphs are high carb intake, pretty much.
Right, and like I said, I don't know why my brain's stopping on me, because that's what I actually mean. So the thing is, though, can they do ketogenic? Sure, I think anybody can do a ketogenic diet.
Any body type.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, like, based off what we talked about with it being the nature of what proteins and fats are needed for in the body, and the fact that though our body prefers glucose, carbohydrates are not required for life. Do you function at your best? That that depends on how well you use other energy sources. But any body type could do that for sure. It just is a matter of is there a body type that is more effective at that? And it was from certain sciences it suggests that endomorphs might be better on something like a keto diet.
Well, the keto diet's going to make it so that their body's going to actually adapt to ketones, in which case they're going to burn more fat.
Yeah.
That being said, someone who's, like I said before, my understanding of a ketogenic diet is it will actually bring you to a more centerline location, if you will, for the body types. So
you're saying eating ketogenic will take ectomorphs and bring them closer to meso, and take endomorphs and bring them closer to meso?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Now, granted, that is just me going with what I believe. I'm not quoting.
Okay, that's what I was. Then my next question was going to be.
I don't have any statistical studies on that. Not that I know of.
That'd be interesting.
But that being said, that's my understanding. So do I think that you can eat anything? I think someone who's an endomorph could actually eat carbs, and as long as they're smart about it and controlled, and be fine. It's all about.
It comes down to individual variation for sure.
And it's like we've talked about before, experimenting and playing with it and making it work so that it actually works with your body. Yeah. If you find that you gain a lot more weight because you eat potatoes, you probably should cut potatoes out of your diet. If you can eat potatoes but you can't eat, I don't know, corn, then don't eat corn and eat potatoes.
Yeah.
It's all. That's why I say it's really based on an individual thing, but. A lot of it comes down, in my belief, and from what your studies that you were bringing up were already talking about, is it's more hormonally based than anything.
Yeah, for sure.
So
that's what I would say, and what I've read, like where you had said, so like endomorphs having lower insulin sensitivity or potential like predisposition to that or tendency to lean that way. That's why he recommends high fat, because they show signs of being able to use fat for energy, and carbs tend to just often get stored as fat.
Right.
And where ectomorphs burn carbs like crazy, and maybe have a hard time maintaining glucose levels, would require a lot higher carbohydrate intake. So.
Well, and again, the thing is if you ate enough fats, even as a ectomorph, you're still going to have your energy levels up higher. So you should. That's what I'm saying. I think keto's okay for everybody. It's not like you can't do it. I think someone who has a tendency towards an endomorphic, heavier body type is going to have a problem with it, because their body's going to have their lack of sensitivity to insulin is going to make more insulin go through their body, which is going to cause their fat levels to go up because of the carbs that are going through their body. That's the only reason why it's an issue. Let me take this thing off. But like a mesomorph, the funny thing is if you take, let's step back here and say, you take the three types, people will claim that, I have a really thin body, I can't gain muscle, I can't do this, I can't do that. There's a famous bodybuilder from the 70s and 80s named Frank Zane.
Yep.
He was Mr. Olympia. He's definitely an ectomorph body type, but he was he as enormous as someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the same time period? No, but he was still extremely large, and if you saw him in the street, no one would think he was a thin guy.
Yeah.
But his body type was ectomorphic. Arnold Schwarzenegger, his body type is very, very, very mesomorphic. It's very much the midline world. If you go, I'm quoting out bodybuilders, so those who don't know who they are, probably have to look it up. But Jay Cutler is without question an endomorph.
Oh yeah,
his body type.
You can definitely see that.
Without question.
Pull up those three people, those three pictures next to each other, and you're going to see quite a lot of differences.
Oh yeah, and the funny thing about it is every single one of them reached a high potential of what their body could do.
Did Frank Zane take
Mr. Olympia
steroids?
Dude, they all took anabolic steroids.
You know more about the bodybuilding industry than I do. I don't really. That's not my realm of fitness.
I don't know if Frank ever admitted to it.
Because that would be interesting to see, because I mean obviously they probably were all taking different stuff, but we know the other two were. So you put those three next to each other, and even with those drugs helping them, their body types still
are
vastly different.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know this for a fact, but I think Jay Cutler's around 5'8" or 5'9".
He's that short?
Yeah, and he's over 300 pounds.
Holy cow.
When he was,
I didn't realize he was that short.
When he was competing, I think his lowest Olympia weight, and don't quote me on this because I'm pulling it out of the top of my head without knowing the facts for sure, but I think it was around 280.
When he hit stage?
When he hit stage.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's crazy huge, especially the height.
Yeah.
But he was an endomorph, okay? Did he have body fat like crazy when he was on the stage? No. It was all about what he did to control it. Now, granted, again, were they
taking anabolics?
Outside sources? Absolutely.
Easy to burn fat.
Well, it's easier.
Yeah.
And but again, I mean, one of the things that they talk about today in the bodybuilding world is the rampant use of insulin, HGH, anabolic steroids, and you know, I'm not down on it. I'm not against it by any means. You know, I'm not saying that that's something that should be controlled by anybody because I think that's ridiculous. But that's something that's highly risky, and you can die from that.
If you're not being monitored or you don't really know what you're doing,
right?
That's a risky game to play.
But the ultimate point is all the body types. You know, even if they're using anabolics, they still have a potential of doing amazing things with what they've got.
Yeah.
It's not like they're stuck to being super thin.
Yeah.
It's not like they're stuck to being super heavy.
Yeah.
They can take their body types. It's not an excuse. You know, you can do what you got to do.
I mean, I can't remember. I had already been training for about almost 2 years when we had met, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when I first started, I was lifting weights at all, pretty much. I was 140-ish pounds at 5'11".
Mm-hmm.
Between 5'11" and 5'10".
Right.
And in a matter of 18 months, I got up to 175 at about half the body fat percentage.
Oh, yeah.
So that you do the math on that, and I did a rough math based off body fat testing, so there's a margin of error there, but a gain of about 40 pounds and a loss of about like maybe up to 10 pounds of body fat. But over the course of 18 months to 2 years, that's ridiculous. And I'm naturally an ectomorph, so
yes,
you can kind of tell if you don't know what 5'10", 5'11" at 140 pounds looks like with longer bone structure. It's fairly thin looking, and I still kind of carry this visual look of more of like, I mean, honestly, like people looking at me on the street, what would you say that I look like? Like, do I look like a lifter? Do I look like a runner? Do I look like something else?
Well, my eyes a little different than the average. Because I would recognize that you lift a lot, but I would also recognize that you're naturally thinner as well. That being said, I would tell you the average person wouldn't. They wouldn't think you're
because
light at
I
all.
feel like if the average person saw me on the street, they would see that I was lean, and they might focus on that. Like maybe they would think that I was an endurance athlete of some kind.
I would agree with that.
I could see that from someone who didn't recognize maybe how much muscle is on my frame, which for my frame, I have a good amount of muscle.
Yeah, you do.
But
sure.
I don't look like a bodybuilder or other types of athletes.
You're leaner, but you look like you lift for sure.
Yeah.
So see, for me, I mean, when we met, if you remember, we actually talked body types back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, we'll break these down a little bit deeper since my brain seems to be functional right now. So,
so the sub-classifications?
Yeah. So the subset I personally use, and that doesn't mean that this is the world of somatotyping, but this is what I actually use. I use ectomorph, I use ectomeso, I use mesoecto, I use mesomorph, I use mesoendo, and I use endomeso and endomorph. Okay, so you have a scale, and the reason why, even though they do it if you were to look it up, they do it in more of a pyramid type look, a triangle, with those at the ends, endo, ecto, and meso on the ends at the points. I don't see it that way because the bone structure on an endo is heavier, the bone structure on a meso is heavier, and the bone structure on a ecto is lighter. Okay, so you can't really, I mean, it's not that you can't have fibers, muscle fibers, because that's a different thing completely, but it's not like you can't have reactions that are like an ecto and be an endo, but the odds are you're going to lean towards a meso because of your bone structure and your muscle mass, if that makes more sense.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I don't say there's an ecto-endo or an endo-ecto. There's just, it doesn't
that's
make
what's
sense
interesting
logically.
to me, because how do you feel about, let's say an ectomorph comes in, normal height, thinner body structure, either in normal or underweight weight ranges, except they're over 32% body fat. They're technically obese based off body fat measurement.
Okay.
They're not obese by weight, but by body fat tissue.
That's a hormone base. That's not a bone structure base.
Would you still call them an ecto?
Absolutely.
You wouldn't call them like an ecto-endo?
The somewhat mean term, and I don't mean this mean to anybody at all, but of a skinny fat person is exactly what you're describing.
Yeah.
They look really good when you look at them. They may look really good, but they're high fat content.
They look good in clothes, but they might, have more
interesting,
less muscle and more fat storage.
Yes, and it doesn't necessarily mean that's the case, but that in the circumstances you're talking about, that would be the case, because if they're low on muscle and they're high on fats but they're thin, we've talked about metabolic damage, as a matter of fact. So they have high levels of metabolic damage from some source. So if they would have a weird hormonal base, but their body type doesn't change.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying their base body type, in my opinion, cannot change. You can change somebody's metabolism and you can change their hormone profile, but you can't change their body type. Because
and those two factors can elicit muscular and fat change or exchanges.
Absolutely.
But the frame on which we're building is the same.
Exactly right.
And the coding for that.
Exactly right.
Okay.
And that's the reason why I think that in the course of DNA-based type stuff, they may have an effect, but the reality is, without having some kind of outward source, like we talked about at the beginning when we were talking about the idea of somebody taking steroids when they could that could potentially change the actual metabolism of the children, not the metabolism, the body type, because it would make the bone structure stronger necessarily or bigger, and potentially change
their hormone profile
and their hormone profile. So if their hormone profile would actually lock in a lot of this as they're growing into their body anyway, as a teenager especially. But you can actually see the signs of this as kids. So I really think it's more of a DNA base than it is anything else, the actual structure. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Though we can work with all these other avenues and make it so that they're not necessarily a bad thing. Let's take examples of the negatives and the positive and everything. To gain muscle, the best one in the group is going to be the endomorph. He's going to gain the most muscle by far.
You think so?
Absolutely. Look at who we compared: Frank Zane, Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, but see, that's not
fair.
That's not necessarily fair, because they could be taking different. They were taking drugs and they were taking different drugs.
And I'm not denying that, but their structure can hold different amounts of muscle. So when you have somebody,
okay. So you're saying the potential for
because when you have an endomorph, their body structure is going to be thicker. Their bone structure can handle more muscle, because the tendon attachments are going to be stronger attached to the bone structure. That's why with mine is a classic. Exactly.
Yeah.
We're testing our actual wrists.
What's happening is we're measuring our wrist width. So Shane's fingers. Shane wraps his fingers around his wrist and they touch, but they don't overlap. My fingers overlap,
which is a sign of an ectomorph.
That's one measurement you can do to see kind of body type. Typically, what will happen is if you're ectomorph, like me, I'm more of an ecto-meso, because I still have my
You're an ecto-meso for sure.
Because I have plenty of muscle for an ectomorph, but I still have my ectomorph qualities and structure. I'm overlapping my thumb and middle finger around my wrist.
And mine touches.
His touches, and an endomorph would not be able to touch.
Yeah.
So that's a good indicator an indicator of body type.
And what that shows a sign of is actually bone structure. Okay, it doesn't show muscle or anything like that. All that does is show bone structure. So if you can do that and actually get a really quick breakdown on what your body type is, that'll give you.
Are you doing index finger or are you doing middle? You're doing middle. Okay, yeah. I just want to make sure we were taking the same measurement.
Yeah. No. My index I put behind my hand. But yeah, that's that's a really quick indicator for body typing. You can tell a little bit by limb length. Mine actually are outside that realm because my arms are long. My legs are maybe a little bit short. My torso is long, so I have a fairly unique body type for that. My arm length and my torso length are almost right. So if my legs were probably 3 inches longer, they would even out with what my
Now that you say that, I can totally see that.
Yeah,
interesting.
And so if I had that, my body type would be pretty symmetrical in general. I'm pretty close anyway. But that being said, that's with me. That's how my body sits. Now limb length, my arms would define me to be closer to an ectomorph because of the length. That being said, That's not my musculature is not that way. You can tell when you first met me, I'm not built that way. My arms aren't built long and lean. They're long, but they're not lean.
Mm-hmm.
So I have more potential for a bigger muscle belly in my bicep by nature than you would because of the nature of the way my arms are built.
Yeah, and my arms. So I'm 5'10". I think I've told you this a lot. I tell people this when we talk about body type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 5'10", and my wingspan is 6'2".
Yeah. See,
My
mine's
arms
about
are
6
quite
foot.
long. Quite long.
Right. I'm about 6 foot in my arm length, my wingspan, and I'm just about 5'9".
Yeah. So
mine's
pretty
similar.
So your arms are long.
Yeah, I've got really long arms.
Yeah.
My arms are averagely comparable to someone's about 6'4".
Wow.
6'3". When I go talk to them, we check.
Yeah. Interesting.
Shirt sizes and stuff. But that being said, that doesn't stop my progression or your progression for the capacity to be moving forward and to do the things that we have as goals.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to gain a lot of muscle, we could put a lot of muscle on you and make you look like you were a mesomorph or a heavy duty mesomorph.
Yeah.
We could make you look that way for sure.
That's what would be interesting. That's
it just
where it
changes
comes
your
down
training.
to those individual variables, because now, for me to gain significant muscle mass, to gain weight, and to sustain it, and I'd have to do a specific type of training as well as eat upwards of 5,000 calories, and I know that because that's of what I've done, and that's what, and that's not gaining fat. That is gaining almost exclusively muscle.
Oh yeah, which I couldn't. Well, I can.
But you put an endomorph on that. Or depending on their energy needs. Now, calories aside, but just looking at energy volume, right? That might be too high of caloric intake.
Well, because their insulin will spike to compensate for sugars in their bloodstream, and the insulin will cause their fat levels and their muscle levels to go up.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. If you control your hormone levels, you should be able to control that to a point where you should be able to do that. That's why someone who's more ectomorphic can eat more carbs and be fine with that.
Yeah.
They don't need to necessarily, but they can.
Yeah.
So now again, it depends on goals. So if someone is trying to gain muscle and they're an ectomorph, that's the reason why I kind of wanted to talk muscle fibers today, because at this point is where I was already looking at that. I think this part of this is I think they have different muscle fiber bases in their muscles.
Do you think that ectomorphs are more endurance,
their
muscle
bodies
fiber than they are strength?
Yes, without defining it in too much detail.
Interesting. Okay.
So and that's a personal belief, I think, but that would explain a lot of the reason why they call themselves slow gainers, is because they are fighting the muscle types. They're not going down, and their body doesn't necessarily have the same muscle types that someone else that's a different body type is.
But see, then there's arguments out there from certain people in the industry that say that people aren't hard gainers or slow gainers. They just train and eat incorrectly for their goals.
I'm not denying that.
Okay.
So
because see, that's where my argument may come in, where I said, okay, just starting out and becoming a freshly certified trainer, where I still have a lot to learn at that time, gaining as much muscle as I did was just a matter of certain appropriate training protocols and nutrition.
Of course. See, and I think that's where, like I said, this is my theory. This is not one that I've gotten from anybody. This is my theory.
Okay.
Because when we talked, if you remember, I kept trying to push you into doing a totally different set rep range,
and I wasn't as open-minded as I am
now.
No,
you weren't open-minded at that point at all.
Yeah,
you didn't want to do it, and when you finally did, it actually kind of opened your eyes to it a little bit. That's when you dropped your sets and your time in the gym quite extensively.
Yeah,
remember?
Because I believe your original recommendation was 30-minute workouts.
Yep.
And a way different
maximum 45.
Yeah, and then a way different training protocol that I was following.
No, as a matter of fact,
and you were going to cut my days in half. In the gym,
yeah,
which is way closer to what I do now, actually.
Oh yeah,
which we've talked about.
Yeah, and that's like I said, to me that's a logical direction to go with you, because I would say that you probably have your hormone basis is that your body's not going to be having to kick out as much insulin, So you're not going to have those same scenarios that you will gain the muscle mass that you would require because of your hormone basis. So if you were to change your eating in such a way that your hormones would do certain things. But see, the problem is your body, my belief is with hormones, even though you've changed your hormones, what you're going to be fighting against is the fact that your body doesn't need to have them out there. So when less hormone out there is going to cause you to have less fats. Your muscles aren't going to be able to develop as fast. But if I threw on anabolic steroids, and this is why I have theories about this to an extent, I still think you would still gain a lot of muscle mass even with the hormone issues that you potentially have. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because your metabolism would change to an extent being on an anabolic.
Yeah.
That being said, though, if you start training towards and forgive me, people, because I'm going to define this only briefly, really quick. If you go into a muscle fiber it's a type 2B, okay, which
is a type of strength.
It's a fast twitch muscle fiber, okay, and which is this is what I believe your muscle types are going to, your muscle fibers in the majority of your muscle groups are going to be contained of, is 2B and type 1, which is the slow twitch. Okay, so you'll be able to do high endurance stuff because you have the muscle fibers to do that. Okay, and so that's why guys that lean towards being thinner automatically want to run because their body's
good at it.
Because their body's good at it, right? And so and because of that, this is why my theory comes out there. So I believe that's the biggest muscle fiber aspect is they have this slow, the slower twitch and the faster twitch in that kind of scale. Okay, fast twitch type B muscle fibers will burn out really stinking fast. They're the fastest burning out muscle fiber that there is. Okay, and so what'll happen is if you do really hardcore heavy training and get out fast, you won't take over with your type 1 muscle fibers. You'll use your type 2B muscle fibers, and your muscle grow more because it's one of the biggest anabolically based muscle fiber is the 2B muscle fiber. But you can't go heavy lots of reps.
Yeah.
You have to cut those back. So if you were going in and doing four base exercises, okay, per day, and getting in and out of the gym, you're not going to recruit the type 1 as much. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So your body's not going to have to go into those kind of scenarios.
Yeah.
See, naturally speaking, because type 1 and type 2s don't swap. There's some theory between type 2s changing between type 2A and type 2B and type 2X. But those are, and yes, I am talking stuff that's completely irrelevant in this.
We'll elaborate on all these muscle fibers in our muscle fiber episode.
Yeah, but in the type 2s, just like I said,
he's talking different types of strength and endurance muscle fiber is essentially what there are. It's different classifications.
Yeah, they call them fast twitch. This is what I was going to define really fast for you guys. Fast twitch and slow twitch. Okay, fast twitch means that they burn out really fast, but they push really hard. So they're more explosive in their nature. They'll push a weight like a if you're sprinters will have fast twitch muscle fibers. And a long distance runner will be running on type 1 because they're running a long distance, okay? And the actual fibers kick out certain things that actually make it so that the other fibers that come behind them can actually eat the energy from those, which we've talked about briefly in other episodes like ATP, creatine phosphate, and glycogen. Okay, so glycogen is the main source of fast twitch type 2B muscle fibers. Okay, so that's why with someone like your body type, when they're eating carbs, it's going to make it so they push harder, but they burn it out really fast. So all that food's gone, boom, and then they're going to want to go right to the type 1 fibers because
and that's why ectomorphs respond well. One reason why they respond well to high carbohydrate intakes.
Exactly right, because that'll make it so they have more energy base, so they can actually push longer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, but if you go in and get out and you do less. I was going to say calisthenics, cardio.
Yeah.
If you do less cardio, God, my mind's gone. This whole episode, I apologize, people. I'm destroying this. Anyway, but if you do less cardio, because your body doesn't need that kind of stuff, and your body's going to react and start to want to eat the muscle to run the type 1 fibers, because it runs on
glycogen?
No.
Oh,
type
wait.
1s.
Oh, type 1s?
It's a fatty.
You're slow twitch?
No, try.
You're talking about slow twitch muscle fibers, right?
Yeah, I am talking about slow twitch muscle fibers.
So Fatty acid, you said?
Yeah, it's a fat. It's usually
A specific type you're talking. I don't know which.
It doesn't matter. Okay, but it runs on fats, and I don't want to make this worse.
And
my brain.
Triglycerides.
Triglycerides. What I was trying to say.
I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I was hoping your brain to catch up because mine's stopping for some reason this episode. But it runs on those, so when you're going through with this, it's going to start to suck on the other stuff because it needs more energy.
Yeah.
So the longer you go, that's one of the reasons why someone who's thin all the time, that's why they stay thin, is because that's how their body wants to run. Yeah. So that's why I always recommend you pull out that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You do less cardio. No cardio, actually, for that kind of body type. Knowing that, though, okay, you know that, so you start to take that out and you start to do more weight, less sets, or you could do 4 sets, but you do a certain range of sets and less reps is going to make your body react better than somebody else's. And because of knowing basic stuff about body typing, you would know that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you take this out as a tool, then you won't understand that, and you'll just start throwing out mass amounts of work on these guys, which means they have to eat huge amounts of foods, and that's partly why your caloric intake would have to go up to like 5,000, 5,500 just to keep yourself running, because your body's going to absorb all that.
Oh yeah. That's why I think, that I love that you went through and explained it, at least from my standpoint, because you know a lot about my body type and my journey fitness-wise and stuff like that, to give people an idea of what all these individual factors. But so pretty much your body typing and assessing your body type in terms of approaching your fitness is a tool.
It's a tool. I don't think
address.
I don't think it's crucial, but it's a tool you should address.
Yeah. About 25%, potentially more, of your body type is determined by genetic coding.
Absolutely.
So things you can't change. But there's still a bunch of other factors you can influence, especially the biggest one being hormones, by how you train yourself,
how you
eat, and your sleep patterns.
And the other thing you got to understand, though, is your metabolism, too. Because so when you throw your metabolism, you start raising your muscle bases, you're also going to have a reaction from a metabolic standpoint that's going to make you want to gain more muscle, because your body's going to start going that direction. As soon as you start to train your body to do something, it starts to do that. So that's why I'm saying you're not locked. I mean, an endomorph, I would say...
no, definitely not trapped in your body type, for sure.
Absolutely.
That's one thing we want people to know.
No, and that's why... Because
I've had a lot of people... Sorry to cut you off.
You're good.
A lot of people come to me and they're like, well, isn't that just my makeup? Isn't that just my genetic code? Aren't I just born to be big or born to be small? And a lot of people don't realize, there are a lot of factors, and that 25% that determines your part of your body, but they don't they feel imprisoned by that, and they don't realize that they actually have quite a lot of control over many other factors.
Right.
They can alter. Now you're not gonna necessarily, like you said, change your skeletal structure or change your muscle insertion and origin points. You can't do that. It's not possible.
Right.
So, but they can influence adipose and muscle tissue.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And hormone levels, because, if somebody has a thyroid problem, they're going to gain weight no matter what. If you have a thyroid problem, the odds are astronomical you're heavy. But that's a hormone base, and your hormones, if you work with them right, you can actually use those as a tool as well. But knowing a basic understanding of your body type, and then working through hormones and working with your metabolism as you twist it and work with it, the better it'll get. Like an endomorph, they have if they want to go work out for longer periods of time, it's not going to hurt them as much. An ectomorph, if they work out for long periods of time, in my opinion, and from what I've seen, it's going to make them have less growth in their muscles than like an endomorph could work out for 2 hours and grow.
Yeah.
A mesomorph working out for 2.5, 3 hours, he's going to have a problem too. And so you have different things that you have to work through. It's not that you necessarily have to do that. HIIT's going to work great for an endomorph, phenomenally well for an endomorph, because it's going to motivate your body to start eating the right things. But long distance running is going to do the same kinds of things because it's going to eat fatty tissues. A ketogenic diet is more likely to do more for them, but it will still do good things for an ectomorph. But you got to play with it, and you just got to take these kind of things and use them as tools.
Yeah.
That's why I thought we should probably talk about this in more detail.
Yeah.
If my brain had functioned better at the beginning, we'd have been a little better, but
it's all good. So that gives you some ideas, people, is that, about 25% of your body is determined by genetics. The next probably major influencer is going to be your hormone profile, and then the factors that you are in control of, that will influence that, which is your rest and recovery, your actual training regimen, and your nutritional intake. And it comes down to that being a tool, and you need to experiment with your body. You need to figure out what you respond to, and what does and doesn't work. So,
Agreed with that.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
All right, there you got some information on body types. So until next time, we'll see you soon. Talk to you later.
Peace.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Shane and I hope you learned something new and exciting today about your own health and fitness. Head over to metabolicradio.com. There you'll find our bios and our results-driven programs that are designed to help teach you everything you need to know when it comes to getting real permanent results. You can also sign up for our newsletter to get free weekly updates. To chat with Shane or I, just email us at taylor@metabolicradio.com or shane@metabolicradio.com. We would love to hear from you. You can also join the conversation on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and search for Metabolic Radio Private Forum. There you can request to join the group. We would love to add you to the conversation and answer your questions on the show. And hey, if you like our podcast, please help us grow our community by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. We would really appreciate your help. Thanks again so much for all your support and your listenership. Now go out there and spread the good word of fitness.